Welcome to the Inside Pitch. Christopher Lockhart, the creator and administrator of this private Facebook group where screenwriters, creatives, filmmakers meet to ask and answer questions and exchange ideas and information on the craft and business of movie making. I do not administrate the group alone. I'm joined by Steve Enlow. And I'm also joined by, coincidentally, the co-host of this live streamcast, Ramesh where is he? Sorry, I can't see. There he is. Sorry, I screwed that up. Ramesh!
Having a senior moment today.
you know how it's kind of like it's the pictures. Well, yes. Anyway, I apologize. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Ramesh, co-host of the Inside Pitch.
Hey, everyone.
Co-administrator. Ramesh always gives us that enthusiastic, hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. So, any kind of news that we need to get out? Anything exciting? No?
I don't think so, no.
Oscars tomorrow night.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there. And just programming note, 2 weeks from today, we'll be doing our panel with script consultants.
That's right.
Always a controversial subject. Should it even be controversial? I don't know. We'll find out. So that's 2 weeks from today. And but at this particular moment, we are bringing out two writers, a team, and Ramesh, you're going to tell, you know something? Let me just say hello to everybody who's, by the way, where is everybody today? Everybody's, I guess everybody's going to watch it on the rebroadcast, but hello to those of you who are watching. We appreciate your attendance. Remember, you can leave your questions for our guests in the comment section, and Ramesh and I will read them for you. All right, Ramesh, take over.
Oh, here we go. Okay, our two guests today. Sal Cardoni earned his MFA in screenwriting from Loyola Marymount University School of Film and Television. Brian Rawlings holds degrees in cultural anthropology and radio, television, film from the University of Texas at Austin. He received his master's in English from the University of Dallas. In 2019, Sal and Brian sold their pitch for Live from the Vatican, a horror thriller about an exorcism at the Vatican, to Paramount, with Matt Jackson of Molly's Game and Trial of the Chicago 7 producing. In 2021, Blumhouse bought their thriller spec Unseen, which is on VOD now and will stream on MGM Plus in May. It stars Midori Francis of Grey's Anatomy and Jolene Purdy of White Lotus, and tells the story of a gas station attendant who answers a call from an unknown number and is thrust into an impossible situation. She has to help a total stranger who has been temporarily blinded escape her kidnapper by being her eyes through video call. Repped at Paradigm, they are currently developing projects for 87 North, Kennedy Marshall, and Feig Company. Welcome, Sal and Brian.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sal. Sal's a little under the weather today, even though he has a lot to celebrate, but maybe a little bit of sniffling and a little bit of throat clearing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, guys.
Sal, you're as enthusiastic as Ramesh. So we're actually prepared for this. Ramesh read the spec script, and and I shelled out my $5.99 last night and watched it.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And so we're gonna get into that in a little bit, but I just thought maybe we could spend just a couple of minutes with your origin stories. So Brian, you just want to tell us sort of how you found your way into the business?
I started writing in my early 20s, had no success, and then I kept at it. Eventually, I won the Austin Film Festival with a short dark comedy spec or script, and then that's how I got repped. And then I kept writing indie, idiosyncratic dark comedies that are very hard to sell if you don't have money on your own or independent financing. And Sal read one of those scripts. It was my Waiting for Godot in a Trailer Park. And he basically said, this is all fine and good if someone's going to pay you to make this. Otherwise, you're going to remain poor if you can't come up with concepts that Hollywood will buy. And then after that, one of my friends knew Sal because he did coverage, so he sent him the script. And then Sal and I partnered up on a script, which was an exorcism story in the world of the drug cartels. That almost sold to Paramount. Sal was already repped. That then got us repped as a team. Matt Jackson took that one out, and then shortly thereafter, we sold the Vatican pitch to Paramount that Ramesh mentioned. And
Sal is a member of the Inside Pitch, and I remember posting that Variety article of that Vatican pitch sale. All right, so Sal, you want to?
Yeah, so I came out to LA 2003 to go to film school at Loyola Marymount, during which I was lucky enough to get an internship at a small company called International Creative Management, ICM, for one Christopher Lockhart, the host of yours, the lovely Inside Pitch here. I like to say I got 2 master's degrees, one that I paid for at school, and one I guess I sort of paid for with you, Chris.
I made you work for it.
Opened my eyes to what really matters to people that actually get writers' money, agents. I think I did 2 scripts a day, 2 days a week for a year or 8 months or something. Loved it. I would go back again, even as a middle-aged man now, to do that. I learned a lot about what to do and what not to do.
We eventually hired you.
No.
No, you were never hired?
I was never an official. I never got a paycheck from ICM.
I never hired you?
Yeah, well.
I hired Patrick Melton.
Nobody's perfect.
I hired Gideon.
I know.
How did I never hire you?
never got the call. So I graduated. I apologize. I have a cough here. Got an animated movie made because at school I won an award that got me a mentor, and it was Joel Cohen, who wrote Toy Story, and he didn't want this animated writing job, but I was like, sure, that's a lot of money to me. It wasn't to him. Took it. I have a credit. We don't have to talk about that movie. If you want to, we can. Gnomes and Trolls, The Secret Chamber. And then, the money went away, and so I started to do coverage for years when I lived in LA. I think at my height, I was reading, I don't know how many a week, whatever you guys read, Chris. I think I've read 12 or 13,000 scripts covered professionally for everybody that you could think of, for different companies, for my own self, and one of these was Brian's 100-page Godot in the Trailer Park, and we started working together shortly after that.
So in other words, you really have me to thank, because if it wasn't for me and my internship, you wouldn't have been reading and you wouldn't have met Brian. So really,
no, completely, not completely true.
To me.
I do. I honestly do. And it gets him angry because I'm like, well, Lockhart would say this, and I can see him rolling his eyes when we're talking.
Sorry about that, Brian.
That's all right.
And then and then Unseen came about, and so how did that idea kind of evolve?
Well, it's Brian's idea. I'll give him the credit. He had a fever dream, I think, one morning in a San Diego hotel, but that was about a month in. I think we were looking for ideas that could be shot quickly with a limited crew because of Corona, right, Brian? Is that the story?
Yeah, the San Diego fever dream was Vatican.
Sorry. Right. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, this one, I think I called Sal at 4:30 in the morning. I still had a day job. I traveled a lot, and I had the Vatican idea. But this came shortly before COVID, or when COVID was starting, and we were trying to come up with ideas that you could shoot with close to a skeleton crew. And then this was the original one. I think there were aliens in it originally.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep,
there were.
It was someone trying to get somebody home during an alien invasion, so it could be a kind of Cloverfield thing
I
with a
see.
limited POV, and then we're talking about it with our reps, and that the aliens went away quickly.
And then because I remember talking to Sal in the very, very beginning when you didn't even have a script, I believe, right? It was just
I was on the
idea
phone too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. And and so clearly the kernel of what you pitched is there in this movie. But if, like, for example, I think when I heard the pitch, I'm not even sure if you guys at that time were sure as to who the protagonist was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Was it going to be the blind
right.
lady or whoever was going to help them? And also, I
Yeah.
think in the original pitch, she was blind. Yes.
Yeah,
She was.
yeah, we can
Yep.
go into all these. Yeah, so there were many
I want
stages
to
of
talk
this.
about all that stuff because I want to talk about sort of how the idea evolved, what the spec looked like, and then what it looked like after you developed it with Blumhouse, and then what it looked like after the director came on board.
Sure. So initially, from you, I think we always try to write a log line, because if the log line is broken, the arrow is broken, so to speak, then you can't. I think you once told me, Chris, you can't write a good movie from a broken log line. So we honed that for a long time, and that finally worked. And then we started to break the story, and I tell the story, but I'll tell it here for your audience. I used to keep a run tracker app on my phone, and this was either June or July of 2020. And I would start it when we would start to talk, because I live in Ohio and Brian lives in Palm Springs. And that month, I tracked almost like 290 miles of walking, just talking, breaking the story. And we would go on just tangents. There was a whole, remember, Brian, one point there was like a chase sequence with
There was an
trucks.
18-wheeler in it.
There's an 18-wheeler, yeah. So we go through all these different stages, and that took a while. And then I think we were busy with something else, because we try to keep ourselves busy with multiple projects. We came back to it, and I had like this existential breakdown in my backyard once, because I remember telling Brian, the protagonist is not the blind woman. It's the girl it's the then unnamed character in the gas station, because she has the agency. She's the one doing the saving. So that was like a moment in this, right? And then we always do these internal outlines for ourselves. And I believe our internal outline for this one was 20 or 25 pages, maybe a scriptment too with some dialogue. And then we started to write it, and we would get bogged down with like technical aspects, because originally it was FaceTime, right? But now in the movie, it's just video call. So we would have to use FaceTime stuff. There was like a bunch of Apple technical stuff, right, Brian? Where I think I went to an Apple store once. I went to the Apple store and asked a Genius Bar guy if I walked him through a movie, and he was like, "Who are you again?" I'm like, "I'm a screenwriter." He's like, "Oh yeah, whatever, me too." And he, because we wanted it to, verisimilitude is important, and we just didn't want it to fall apart. And I remember we had like this huge crisis one day, because we found out that what we wanted the phone to do couldn't do, or Apple didn't want it to do. And months later, when Blumhouse bought it, they just made it a video call, and all those problems went away.
Yeah.
Figuring out the two characters, who they were and what they were doing, took a long time. I'm rambling here. Brian, you want to pitch in?
Yeah. I mean, after we had the basis of the concept, the foundation, one girl in the gas station, one girl in the woods. I think I read a review that called it assistance from a distance genre.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite clever. Then we started, really, really thinking about the arcs and the different stakes for each character with respect to their arcs. And Emily in the woods, her external stakes, like she just wants to get out of here and live. So then we were like, well, that's cool. We've seen that a lot in survival thrillers. You don't really see much else in survival thrillers other than those stakes. But then we started talking about how we could make a much more emotional, spiritual journey for the girl that physically doesn't go anywhere, but escalate the conflict and the stakes in that location. So once we started doing that, Sal was like, well, it has to be Sam as the protagonist. And we definitely wrote the script with Sam much more as the protagonist because I think her arc, her emotional, spiritual arc is bigger. I don't know if in the movie she looks more like the protagonist. I think she still does. It's very close to being a two-hander.
It's
now.
definitely a two-hander.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
two-hander. Okay, yeah. But I don't think we would have made it that solid had we not arrived at the conclusion that Sam needed to be a little, if it's 40, 45, 40, 60%, Sam just felt like a bigger character to us because of her emotional arc.
Right. Well, even in a two-hander, one of those two characters tends to be the
That's
protagonist.
a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
As Sal said, one usually has the perhaps the bigger burden. Although here the balance is very interesting because the one girl literally has sort of the life and death stakes, but yet the other girl also has sort of the responsibility of the life and death stakes.
Yes.
Which I guess the assistance from a distance is actually a subgenre. I never really quite thought about it. But yeah, sure it is, right? We've seen these movies like with, there was the, like you've got the 911 caller who's, trying to help somebody. Wasn't there like a Halle Berry movie? And there was like
there
a
was.
Hall
Yeah.
movie, and so right. So or often a lot of films will sort of have that element in it, right? Like it's a disaster movie. Die Hard, right? Exactly. Yes. So I thought that it was balanced out very well.
Good. Thank you.
And so then at what point did you show it to your reps and sort of, what was the feedback like? And you had reps then, I'm assuming, yes?
Yeah.
We did.
That we did another draft with them. They kind of leave us to do what because they know we think about these things so much and we debate and we measure 50 times and cut once. They know that we're going to give them something of a certain quality. And they definitely had notes for sure. The managers kind of upped the Karen and Ken angle a little bit. Which became a Missy Pyle thing. We'll talk about that later.
I think we got the classic move it up, get it started earlier note too. I think our first act was a little longer in the draft the reps got, and we cut something out because I think we were doing a lot to make sure that there are close all the doors so that there are no other options for this girl in the woods. So I think we kind of overdid that in the first draft so that the logic felt sound. And then the reps made us cut some of that and then just move up the call earlier in the script.
I think it's always fine to overwrite, in the beginning. Put it all down, and then you can sort of shear out what you don't need. And what was the choice to use female characters? Did you ever consider for a moment to use male characters?
No.
And
no.
Was this partially in response to the whole, we need more roles for women?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
A lot of the stuff I wrote before Sal was female. There were always female leads, and this wasn't. We need more women in film. A response to that. I just like writing females. I get a little tired of the over masculine stuff in movies and thrillers or in action stuff. And so I just wanted to see, when I started writing, before Sal, more females in those kinds of genres. So it's just an artistic choice, an individual sensibility. I like putting females in genres that oftentimes are male centric.
And did you ever get a note from anybody saying, well, you're two men?
No. We don't ever get that. I think humbly we potentially write women well because Brian did it before me, and you know, my wife helps me with strong women characters. So that's not a thing. Some of the other stuff you get notes on. No, I think it was also, I think I just like the villain being a crazy stalker male. So, you know, and we could have certainly made then other choices with the characters regarding to their gender, but it just kind of felt right.
Yeah.
The current configuration.
Right. Maybe I should have asked this earlier. Could either of you just give, you know, a very quick pitch of it for those who are watching who are completely unfamiliar with Unseen? Could you just give us like a quick pitch? Put somebody on the spot.
Sure. There's a depressed gal in the Panhandle of Florida working the overnight shift at a gas station, and she gets a call from an unknown number who is a woman running from her murderous ex in the woods. Turns out this woman is visually impaired and needs to be the girl working at the gas station to be her eyes through FaceTime to help her escape her boyfriend, the crazy killer.
I mean, it's such a, you know, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? You know, I mean, it's sort of like a really, I remember when you first pitched it to me, I was like, yeah, you know, I mean, that's a, you know, that's a movie, you know.
Yeah.
You told us it was going to sell, and it did.
I did?
Yes,
did.
you
That.
You
Look at
did.
that.
You did.
I'm like the amazing Kreskin. Yeah, but you know, you don't, you know, it's not like you need 35 years of experience in the business to guess that that's going to sell. You know, and
you and Sal are a little more attuned to that stuff than I am.
well, but I also knew that it was in good hands with you two guys. So
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so good. Ramesh, you got to read the spec.
Yes.
Do you have any questions about that? You know, any observations?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful read. It's a lot of fun to read, and it moves incredibly fast too. The version I think Sal sent me was the one you sold to Blumhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so, what was some of the changes? I mean, the biggest change, of course, is the nationality of the ethnicity of the protagonist. And I was just wondering how that happened.
Once Blumhouse got Yoko on board, you know, she took over and made
To direct.
Yeah,
Yes,
to
to
direct. And changed the ethnicity of the protagonist and put a little bit more of her themes and concerns into the story. But I think Sal and I had already laid a solid foundation, so she could do that with ease and very much make what we wrote her own.
Yeah, because in theory, and Ramesh, you read the spec, so correct me if I'm wrong, but did the characters feel like they had to be white, or could they really have been cast with any ethnicity?
They could have. That was the other thing too. That was one of the fun parts about reading it, and yeah, they could have been anything really. And I don't think even I checked, the names didn't change.
No, I didn't.
So,
however, there is a reference or two in the film about them being Asian, specifically talking about the racist performance of Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Right.
That might be the only reference. I'm not 100% sure, but clearly that wasn't in the spec. So where'd that come from?
No. So what happens when you sell a script? The company does a purchase. They buy the spec script, and then I don't know what our deal was on this one, but I think we had 2 rewrites and a polish, or 3 rewrites and a polish. And we did all those. Yeah, and then most directors get to do a polish on everything they direct. So she did a tweak, and she tweaked some of the dialogue here and there, and that's where that stuff came from. And I think for the better, because she needed to make it personal to her, and it really plays.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because a lot of writers have their very, very precious spec script, and maybe they assume that every single word that they've written, every single image that they have created is exactly the way it will go to the screen. And I don't know, maybe that does happen if you're the writer director, but I think probably more times than not, it gets filtered through not only the producer, because clearly the producer gave you notes, and then the director, and then even the actors. So can you talk a little bit more about the evolution and maybe some specific elements, like you already told us what the agents added or suggested.
Sure.
What did the development from Blumhouse do? How about what did the actors bring to the table, for example?
So once Blumhouse bought it, they did a budget pass with us. That was our first rewrite. I think is the train still in that draft that you read, Ramesh? Is there a train?
Yes.
Okay, right. So that had to go. No trains in Blumhouse movies. And then there was what I thought. Yeah, I had this Waffle House scene that was just going to blow everybody away, and then they were like, that's gone. So everything has to be at the gas station in the woods. So we did that rewrite and cut down some of the architecture from the set pieces, so they're more manageable for shooting. We did that pass with them, and then the next pass we did was some of their ideas on character, and then I believe the script went to Yoko. They didn't send it out to directors with what's kind of a big elaborate set piece. So they're like, we don't want the director to get attached to that, only to find out they can't do it. So after we did those 2 classes with Blumhouse, went to Yoko. We met Yoko, talked a little bit about some stuff she wanted in there and some other budget stuff. We did that polish for her, and then she took it over and did put her stuff in there. And we weren't on set because this was during COVID, so we got to do it. We got to hear a table read. Whatever the actors did on set or did with Yoko, we don't really know because we weren't there. But that was the development process with Blum and her.
I like the Waffle House scene.
I know.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
It's a great scene.
I love that scene. I love that.
What happened in the Waffle House? And this was a scene, folks, that was not part of the film.
Yeah,
So,
Sam runs into the Waffle House. Oh, you guys can tell it. Yeah.
I haven't read it in a while. She. Do you remember it, Sal?
Sort of. Not really. Well, okay. So she loses. Her phone dies, or she needs a replacement. She runs down the street to a Waffle House, and there's like 3 people there. She explains, I need a phone. I'm helping this woman. Blah 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 blah. One person doesn't have a phone because they're government conspiracy freaks. They don't trust anybody. Another person who's like, I don't know, maybe slightly potentially mentally off, holds up a phone, but it's broken in different pieces. And then
but it goes down the line. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if y'all have been into Waffle Houses in the middle of nowhere at like midnight or 1 a.m. I have a couple times. They're very strange, surreal places, and the clientele that's in there are their own brand of human beings. So we had that kind of strange world, and then there's 3 people sitting in the booths, and she announces to the Waffle House what she needs, and you go down the line of all the people sitting there, which I hope each one's kind of a build, and then the final person is what Sal said. Someone who takes like the wreckage of a cell phone out of her purse. I think it was a woman, and says, maybe we can fix it. And you think there's a moment where a phone's going to emerge from this bag of stuff that she has, and it's just the parts of this cell phone. And I really thought it was a cool, suspenseful build, and it had the Americana stuff that I like, and some of the absurdity which you see in that made it into the final film.
And of course, it's also her attempt to get a phone in a rational, legal fashion before she has to take the extreme measures that she does.
Yeah. So what happens is she then can't. That says no. I think at that point she had driven there. She starts to drive her car. She starts to drive her car back down the rural highway area, and then she gets into an accident, and then she has to run back to the gas station, and that's when Missy Pyle pulls up.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so they were just like, they were being very nice and professional, but they were like basically saying, you guys are boobs who don't know that company moves are expensive, and so keep it in the gas station.
And Sal crafts these Mission Impossible type sequences very, very well, and that's really what that was. That had its own tone and flavor. So that went. But to answer your question, Chris, also, from the script that you write, how precious should you be about it when it gets bought and then it gets made? Well, you realize it's pretty different. But what was coolest to Sal and I is that she kept the punk rock spirit of it, and the kind of anti-establishment spirit that's in the script, and a lot actually of the absurd humor. And I think Blumhouse, what's so cool about them is they allow artists to do these tonal experiments, make things more idiosyncratic than a studio might let you do, because it's an artistic risk. Is it going to work? So obviously some people aren't going to like it, so on and so forth. But that's what was so awesome for us, is that she kept the spirit of the piece and the sensibility that was in the script, and then it's a collaborative art form, and then brought her own concerns into it.
Sal, you in our pre-chat, you used an analogy about a house. Do you remember that analogy?
So, Brian and I we're carpenters. We build the house, and then a director can come in and put the wallpaper in and decorate however he or she may want to. I think that's kind of how our career will go. We're working on different things with different people, and our sensibilities might not line up exactly with different people, and they might bring their flavors into it. But the house that we built, and by that I mean the framework of the plot, is usually what stays.
The film uses split screen a lot, and was that something that you knew going in? Was that something that the editor came up with? Was that something that the director?
That was Yoko. Honestly, minute one of Zoom 1, she was like, "I'm thinking of using split screen."
I think she pitched that when she did her open directing pitch for them. Yeah, she's going to do split screen.
We love Yoko. We love working with her. We want to work with her potentially again on other things. I think that she has an amazing visual style, and she got great performances from these two women. That's what I'll say about this. It's weird to kind of throw praise at your own film, but this is all directing. It's hard to get, according to me, I've watched this film 5 or 6 times now. There's genuine chemistry between Sam and Emily, and they're never in the same physical space. And that's hard to do. And she did it, and I think partially by the split screen stuff. For your viewers who haven't seen the movie, for example, if Emily's walking in the woods and you focus on her feet, Yoko would put the camera down on Sam's feet walking in the gas station. So they're a unit, even though they're 2,000
They're tied together.
Yeah, they're tied together, right?
There was even one shot where it's split, and the girl in the woods sort of walks out of frame, and the girl in the station walks into the frame.
On
her side, which I thought was.
That was not on the page. That was all her.
No.
Right.
They're remarkable visual stylists. Yeah.
Let's talk about Missy Pyle. Let's talk about, because she's the antagonist in the movie. So at some point in the movie, our girl Sam in the gas station, her phone conks out and she needs another phone, and so she eventually takes the phone from Missy Pyle, who is this very upscale, wealthy, snobbish, maybe even racist, wealthy socialite who somehow or another ends up at that gas station.
Wrong turn.
Absolutely. And has her phone taken. And of course, then because she's so privileged,
Yes.
she will get her phone back by
Mhm.
any means necessary. So
Mhm.
talk about Missy Pyle, because she's sort of has her roots, I think, in like comedy and although she's really, I mean, she's pretty awful in this, and I don't mean her performance. I mean, like, her character is just, she scowls through the whole thing. I mean, she's just
really great.
she's literally like Cruella DeVille.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
literally playing Cruella DeVille. It's like if
Mhm.
there were puppies there, she would drown them. So can you talk about what she brought to the table?
A lot of the villains and antagonists that we write tend to be some representation of, as you said, privilege, entitlement, or abusive thinking. So that was there in the script. And growing up, I think you used the word debutante, Chris. Growing up in Dallas, I was witness to some of that behavior. And even though it's a very over the top performance, I don't think it's too far from some of the absurd, inhumane behavior that you can find in that class and in certain parts of the United States. So that was very much in the script. And Missy's also from Texas, so I think she probably saw that when she read it and had some idea of what we were going for, and then just brought her own spin to it, amped it up, and then Yoko and her team gave her that costuming, which, like you said, it's like a Cruella DeVille sort of debutante look.
She's got like that boa on.
Yeah, I just loved it. So that was there. They just amped it up even more.
Yeah, well,
And
again, I think, the thing that I like about the story is that both of the ladies are in dire circumstances.
Yes.
Mhm.
And yet they need to come together, but there are these forces that are keeping them apart. And so clearly the Missy Pyle character needs to really be a, formidable threat. She really
Mhm.
needs to be an obstacle. And it's over the top, but it's not over the top to a point where the whole thing sort of falls apart, because it's very grounded.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's very grounded. It's more like, it's more the production elements that sort of give it its flair, but the
Sure.
story itself and the characters feel very, very down to earth. It feels pretty real.
Oh, that's great.
And so then when Missy Pyle comes in, it sort of amps things up a little bit. But again, it's like Sam's got to be in real trouble.
Yeah, let me interject here,
Mhm.
Chris. I think that was important. Once we realized that Sam, at least took us, that we had written for maybe a couple of weeks on it, and it was like, it was working, but it wasn't working. And then once I had the idea that Sam, the revelation, the no shit moment, right, for us, that Sam was the protagonist, I quickly did like a bunch of downstreaming. And I'm like, well, okay, so if she's the protagonist and she has the biggest arc, but Emily's the one in the most physical danger, it's going to feel imbalanced. We have to find we have to find a way to get physical danger into this gas station. Otherwise, our protagonist is kind of like a 911 operator in a call center, and that can work, but it just felt like you would want to be going. You would want to be cutting more to Emily in the woods, because there's no danger for just a woman talking. And I think that's where it kind of organically came to well, who's going to give her the phone? And then Missy took this character that was on the page in every draft. And then, I think she ad-libbed a lot of her lines. I can say that. And I think we were at the screening last week in LA, and we heard a story, because we didn't hear this. We weren't on set, that Yoko took Missy and Jolene aside and said, for this to work, I need you, Missy, to be as mean as possible to Jolene and they said, yeah, go for it, because it's for the project. And she says some awful things to her.
She does. Yeah.
She does.
Yeah. I mean, she's fully committed.
Yeah.
To her villainous role, no doubt about it. So Ramesh, I see that there are
Yeah,
some questions
I do
starting
have
to pile up.
a question. The version you sold to Blumhouse,
Mhm.
how many drafts did you go through before you got to that?
Oh shit. Well, like
Two.
Sal said, yeah, but we do these really, really detailed outlines first. So we did
And
that.
even
I guess
before the outline, we talk to death about stuff. We will run something to ground for like 3 days. And then one of us
Good
will do
idea,
notes.
yeah.
And then it'll become an outline. And then so
I guess so.
two
After,
drafts of a screenplay, but I want to say like 5 drafts of a thinking
yeah,
of this, right?
I think so. Yeah, it was 2 actual goes in what we use writer's duet in the script, but the treatment that's just breaking the story. That's where all the heavy lifting is. That was months, and then 2 actual screenplays, and then that went to market.
And
drafts of screenplay.
I'm assuming that Blumhouse is a WGA signatories. Yes,
Yes.
no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
yes.
so were you guys already in the WGA? Did you get into the
Yes.
WGA through this project?
We were in the WGA through the pitch
the
we sold
Vatican.
through the Vatican with
Okay,
Matt.
right.
Mhm.
Is that,
Okay.
I'm on a call. Go upstairs.
Okay.
Sorry, my
Sal-
daughter just came down.
Sal is parenting.
At what point did the character go from being blind to being temporarily blind, and why was
Great.
that?
Great. Thank you. That was a Blumhouse note. I think, actually, somebody asked me this yesterday. I think because so that they could do the blurry POV, it just makes it more visual. Whereas if you're blind, you just have the camera on her and you have no POV to cut to. So I think that was probably, is that right? So I think that was probably the decision to generate more terror when you're visually, at least on screen, when everything's blurry.
Yeah, that's actually very, very, very interesting reasoning. I think like at first when, because it's always like, oh, somebody loses their glasses and you're like, come on, like they really can't see anything, unless they're wearing like Coke bottle glasses,
Mm-hmm.
which she isn't. But you slide right into it, you're like, like you buy it, like you buy it. And
Guys,
it's set up
pardon
pretty
me.
well.
I need to leave for 2 minutes. This is
Go ahead.
important.
No,
I'll be right
it's-
back.
please,
I apologize,
please.
guys.
No, don't.
Sorry.
Sal
Go ahead, Chris.
has 2 children. One is fairly newborn. I mean, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think almost
fairly.
half a year or something.
Yeah, right.
Year, maybe.
So,
Yeah.
right. So, and Mr. Ramesh, you have anything?
Someone here, you had talked about doing the log line, and he goes, how much time did it take for the 2 of you to get the log line to where it needed to be, and what was the process to come to that point?
That was probably in total like you say a week of work, but you got to turn your brain off for a while because you just keep banging your head against the wall if you don't do something else. So I think that probably took, well, the first one took a week. And then when we realized Sam was the protagonist, then we rewrote the log line to reflect that. But we had the log line after about a week of work, and then we started doing our outline. And then in the process of the outline, we rewrote the log line so that Sam looks more like the protagonist.
Yeah, I always say log lines are not etched in stone. They change as your story changes. But it should always reflect what it is that you're trying to write at the very least.
But the concept is still there. And I think Sal said, Chris, you told him once, and correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the best high concepts are character independent. So that you can kind of
listen, I just say shit all the time.
That sounded really smart because I mean it works for me because I would get so obsessed when I first started writing
Sal,
with
you're
character.
muted, by the way. I'm sorry.
You're
Brian.
still muted, Sal.
Yeah.
I would get so obsessed with the characters. I when I first started writing, I would never want to do a log line. Like I don't want to be I don't want this to be hemmed in a certain direction. I just want to see what happens with the character. Which is fine if you're Patty Chayefsky or Charlie Kaufman. I'm not. So, then when I started working with Sal, we would just make sure the concept was cool first, and you see a movie, and then you can put characters into that concept.
You can absolutely do that, right? Or, by the way, you can, of course, always flip-flop it. If you have a potentially intriguing character, and then perhaps figure out the best place to put that character
in the concept.
For sure.
It's like I once heard Mo Howard from the Three Stooges being interviewed, and they would sit down and contemplate their next short film. And the first question that they would always ask is, okay, where should the Stooges not be? Where should they not go? What situation should they never find themselves in?
That's good.
And then so they should never be at a, coronation for a queen. All right, let's do it.
Let's do that. That's cool.
Right. So if you know the character, but because a concept is a concept. And I think that's really sort of a high concept. Yet you still have concepts can still, maybe not particularly high concepts, but you can still have really compelling concepts that are definitely character dependent. Like I'll always fall back on Insomnia, where that concept is really sort of dramatic, is very, very well put together dramatically, but so much of it is dependent on that character's backstory. Right. For it to really work and really be super clever. But yet it's much harder to pitch Insomnia.
It's harder to pitch, and and at this stage in our career, which I guess, I don't know, maybe it's safe to say we're kind of mid-career, middle tier writers at the moment. The easiest way to get people's attention is with the clever concept that can then have cool characters inside of it. Start talking about the backstory of the character and this and that. Usually people are going to check it out.
35 years ago, I was depressed, and so I was compelled to create.
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. And there was just this thread in the Inside Pitch that I think Ramesh posted. From some Twitter writer who was talking about, concept, concept being king, and yet he was getting a lot of flack from writers. And I totally agree that ultimately writers have to write what it is that they write. They can't write things that they can't write. But ultimately, if you're a writer trying to break in my opinion, concept is still king. Unless you get some buoyancy from like winning the nickel, or your script lands on the annual blacklist. If that specially written script can make it that far, then people will pay attention. But otherwise, if you're a new writer and you're not getting that kind of attention, then the thing that is going to garner attention is a concept like your concept.
It's been our experience with everything. Well, the two things we sold and the other things we have in development. Yep.
Right.
There's a phrase that these execs like to use is sticky. It's sticky, right? We've heard that. We almost sold like 6 different sticky concepts. I will say this to here's an unasked question. I'm just going to give an answer. Sometimes we hear a lot, or like, why don't they get back to us? Why isn't this exec get back to us? What's taking so long? I once had a friend. I won't tell you her name. She works in features, and now she's in television.
Oh.
At any one moment, she was actively developing 40 projects because she knows that that'll lead to like 5 go things.
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game.
So you think about that, and you're like, oh my God. Now I get why it's 10 days to get their attention, even like for a 2-sentence reply. And Brian and I have sold 2 things at this movie that has, good Rotten Tomato score. Maybe they'll answer a couple days sooner, but they still take a week to 10 days to get back to you.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, finish. Go ahead.
People have also read us in town, so they know more or less what we're capable of, and now they've seen what we do. So if we give them a concepty thing, a high concept, they'll have some idea of what our execution might look like. So that is, I do want to add that caveat. It's, yes, high concepts get everybody's attention, but they do need to know that you can execute at some professional level.
Right. I mean,
And
still,
have a little bit of voice.
it still always comes down to execution, right? The high concept will only catch somebody's
Gets you
attention.
so far, yes.
Right. And maybe get you as far as page 30. But if the execution isn't there, it doesn't matter anyway. So
Sal, with my early stuff, Sal would say low concept, high execution.
Mhm.
yeah.
And that kept me in my day job and in the poorhouse. So
Right.
time to change strategy with that.
Right. And you've had more success with
Yes,
high
absolutely.
concept, high execution.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
hopefully. Yes,
Allegedly.
allegedly.
Ramesh?
Yes. Someone wants to know about the process with Blumhouse. What was the process of getting to pitch the story to Blumhouse? Did you pitch an outline, concept, full draft? Essentially, they want to know, how do you get to do such a meeting, and what role did the reps play? And then someone else wants to know, with Blumhouse, did they give any specific set piece or scene notes beside cutting the train?
I'll answer this one. No,
okay.
it was just less is more. They really wanted to focus on these two locations, meaning the gas station and the woods. For the the first question was, we have a great agent at a major agency. He sent it around. He told us on a Thursday. I just had a meeting with somebody in Blumhouse Television. I'll send the script over there. We're like, cool, because that happens all the time and nobody really buys it, or they do, but they like it, not for us. The passes are a whole different thing we talk about. And they said it Friday. I was at a neighbor's house watching a football game, a Cleveland Browns football game outdoors, which is rare. I'm not a Browns fan, but I went for the beer, right? And it was like 12 degrees, and I got a text of a screen grab that the exec there sent to our agent. Brian got it too, and it was, love it, want to buy it, do I have a day to get into it? And it was like that. And I think by Tuesday there was stuff happening, right, Brian? Pretty quickly.
Yeah, but there was 4 months prior to that.
Yeah, right. Before nothing. Yeah, sure.
The script.
Yeah, you don't want to leave that part out.
Well,
yeah. Do you know this, Chris? Did Sal tell you?
I don't think so, no.
So the script, when the script first went out, we had, everybody loved it, all the producers. So we picked 2 very big established producers. They divided up the town, and then they went to the buyers. Oh, we love it, but not right now, whatever the passes are. But we love it, but we're just not going to do it. So it was dead. And then back in fucking day job again, and then Varun, our agent, like I think a month later. Oh, and also Sam Raimi had a similar concept.
Yes.
In development.
Oh, I remember this, Sal. I remember
Did he tell you that?
Well, I think I kind of slipped Sal some insider information. I don't want to get too specific on.
Yeah, the October heart attack.
You did. You slipped him information, but then shortly thereafter, it was confirmed. And then there was a trade announcement after one of the studios read our script about the Raimi script.
Yeah, but I was like, you guys better hurry up.
Yes, and we did. But then that happened. So the script was dead for a month or 2 months, maybe. Yeah. And then Varun was talking to Blumhouse, and they already knew us because they'd read Strange Gods, and we had a general over there. And then they bought it. Oh, yeah, they bought it. That's right. So that script died, and then it was reborn over at Blum.
No good script ever dies, really.
What I hear somebody say, you can always as soon as you put it back on the shelf, you can always take it back off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going back into my attic of scripts all the time. I go back 25 years looking at old scripts that could be reborn, and it has happened. Can we just talk about the fact that, Sal, you're in Ohio, and Brian, you're in Palm Springs. You're a little bit closer to LA, but I know probably the majority of the people in the group do not live in LA. So exactly how do you make these things happen when you're not here?
Well, great. Well, physically every day we just talk. My wife says that I've been having an affair with Brian for 4.5 years now because we just chit chat all the time, nonstop, texting, emails.
Not a healthy one.
No, yeah. So you can do it. And by the way, if you can be a decent professional writer, you can live on the dark side of the moon. They will find your script, But it's getting the context. So I did live in LA for 10 years, 10.5 years, got contacts with Chris Lockhart. My manager is how I got my agent. I got him through school. So I did lay the groundwork with doing that, I don't think you can just never leave rural Virginia. I think you have to make an attempt to go to Hollywood to get some people, because it's a group game. You need friends to help you
But
open
that's not
doors.
realistic for everybody, Sal, right?
It's not
Because
realistic.
there's the guy that's living in Oklahoma. Maybe he's 63 and, he has a job and
Fair enough.
a
Fair
family.
enough.
So what does he do?
Sal, I have more of I never wanted to go to LA. I thought I
go
was going to be Cormac McCarthy and hide out in Texas.
Still might be.
Still might sell my brilliance to the world, and I'd never have to see anyone. So the way that I got my connections still in Texas was winning the Austin Film Festival. And then through that, I got a manager. And then I met someone that knew Sal. So I don't know any other way than, if you don't want to leave where you are, is to win, or at least place in these contests and get meetings with people. I don't know about these services like Coverfly or the Blacklist, but I can't speak to those. I know those are out there, and they seem to have a lot of users and make a fair amount of money. But that's how I did it, not going to LA.
That's right.
Winning that competition. Yeah.
Right. So you were lucky there. But I mean, I know people who've won the Austin and haven't had as much luck as you guys have. So what do you think the difference was? Do you think it was the fact that Sal was connected and that you guys could sort of bring all of that together?
I think Sal did it, the right way. You do have to take that risk and go out there and meet people and learn how the business work, which I did not know. So I've benefited greatly from Sal's connections and his understanding of the business I never would have gotten.
So
on my own.
perhaps the moral to the story is that if you are the guy in Oklahoma and you are a good writer, and that your script has perhaps won a prestigious screenwriting contest, maybe you try to find another writer with a voice like yours, who, maybe the same kind of interests in genres, who has the connections and then, you can sort of bring them together. You're like the Wonder Twins in that respect. Maybe that's a way to do it. I don't know. I don't know if there's a right way or wrong way, but whatever, it seemed to work for you guys. How did you get your agent at Paradigm?
The last script I wrote by myself, left to my own devices, I'm going big, baby. Jurassic Park, huge budget. I love that shit. Which never had any success, but the last, because I had kind of stopped. I had stopped for a while. Not yet. Stopped for a while. Did some journalism. Needed to make money. Then I'm like, well, if I'm going to start this again, I only took a couple months off. I'm going to go big. So I wrote this script called Norma, which is about a very smart female gorilla who safeguards a human baby during an alien invasion. Right? 90 pages, mostly silent for her. And she's basically my version of Ripley, or just an ass kicker from the 80s, right? And it's big.
But she's a gorilla.
But she's a female gorilla. and her super weapon is her mind, so she outthinks these sentient aliens trying to save this baby, takes her on a journey. And people who read it, genuinely get emotional reading that script, because there's some tragedy in it. But like $100 million, impossible to make. That got me a manager who sent it to an agent, and my agent I didn't even know that he didn't even call me. He's now our agent now, to tell me that he signed me. I just got emails from his assistant one day saying he's scheduling meetings for you on the Paramount lot. Can you come out? And I was like, yeah, I can. And I did that for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I didn't tell anybody that I was working with Brian already. So kind of lied to the reps. And then maybe Halloween of 18, I think, or night, I forget what year it was. I was like, well, great. The Sal show's kind of over because I got this writing partner now. They're like, okay, cool, I guess. And we're working on a horror script, which they liked because you can sell horror scripts. And that script, our first script ever, which is basically what if the son of a drug lord becomes possessed while the drug lord is living in a safe house because he's being pursued by rival sicarios. That almost sold to Paramount like 2 or 3 different times. And it's the best thing we've ever written with Matt Jackson. Sorry. And we still have people inquiring about it. Different people.
He still gets us meetings. Yeah.
Yeah. So all that started because I wrote a script about a gorilla. And got a man.
So the lesson is write a script about gorillas.
Yeah, that completely eviscerate, I guess, toxic male aliens, if you will, sort of. With
Sounds
no weapons.
very topical.
Yeah.
Other questions,
do you-
Ramesh?
How do you
We only
work
have a few
together?
minutes left, so
Yes.
we want
How
to
do
get
you
in,
work together? Like when you come up with a thing, when you outline, do you read each other's scenes? Do you like I'll take this scene, I'll take this act, you'll take this act? How does that process work?
Well, I'm 3 hours ahead of Brian, so I'll usually start my day doing some stuff to keep me busy before he calls. I'll do research, I'll do some whatever, I'll write stuff, and then we start talking about it. We don't do 10 you, 10 me. We kind of are in the same shit at the same time. Because we would just rewrite each other nonstop. So we got to get through it together, which is both fast and slow. But once we're through it together, whatever it is, 5 pages, 10 pages, we don't look back because we've already beat it to death together.
But the lion's share of the work is the writer's room, is the story breaking.
Yes.
And then once we've written the outline, then I'll take the first whatever scenes. Sal will go in and rewrite me. I'll rewrite him, and then eventually we'll move on. I mean, we won't obsess over things on the page at that first draft moment. And then when the draft's done, we'll go back and nitpick. But that's typically how it works. He'll take some scenes, I'll take some, and then we'll read each other's and then edit it.
How do you handle disagreements, if there are any?
Violently.
Brian wins.
There are disagreements a lot.
Daily, hourly. But it's never personal. It's always for the better of the project, right?
Yeah. And I think our method is pretty Socratic, which is why it might sometimes take a while. I'm not, some taste stuff I'm kind of firm in, but most of it is just like, well, what works the best? So I think we're very, very open and honest with each other, and it's never really an ego thing. I have some more taste stuff than Sal, that I get concerned about and that I like. But it's a great relationship, because I think a lot of people, when they work with other writers and they haven't done it before, there's a lot of ego involved. So a lot of disagreements, and this is the right way, that's the wrong way, can happen. And I think partnerships are very rare in the business, but the ones that work are quite successful. And we don't have, like I said, a lot of ego wrapped up in what we do. It's just what makes the best product as far as we can understand it.
Well, we might have this year the first duo writing directing team winning an Oscar for Best Director, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's never happened before, right? We haven't had 2 directors win for one movie, correct?
No, but writing teams have won, I think.
Writing
teams.
Won.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Alexander Payne and his guy
No, Taylor. Is it Jim Taylor? Maybe.
Jim Taylor. I
Yeah,
think,
Sure.
and then the Spotlight guys won. Tom
Spotlight
McCarthy
guys.
and
Yeah.
But on the
you know,
partnership thing, I think Sal and I have strengths that complement each other, and we're aware of
Yes.
our weaknesses. There's one guy I studied with for a while, Corey Mandel. He was a tremendous help to me, taught me how to write in conflict. But everybody loves big grand theories. It's like some writers are more intuitive. They're the character, they're the tone, they're the taste. They just kind of swim in that world. And that was very much me. The directors, the writers I would like, Werner Herzog was extremely important to me. And he's not really a plot guy, but he's very much a tone guy, and Sal loves the plot, like the really concise, much more commercial kind of stuff. So we're able to complement each other like that. If Sal's a very conceptual guy, I'm getting better at it. It is my, one of my weaknesses, very much an intuitive guy. So those two things can come together and I think make the best possible product. And if you have two of the same kinds of people,
then you're making the
not,
same mistake twice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably not going to work.
Right. Good point.
I will cede to Brian on tone, on character stuff, dialogue. Usually, but I know how a movie needs to be built because I trained at your teat, Chris. I think, and it's what I do naturally. And so,
It was very sexy, by the way.
Yeah, very sexy.
I had a very, very strange tingle in my body when you said that.
Yeah, well, I can be in LA in 5 hours. But I love to build a set piece. Like, I think if I had designed the Jurassic Park kitchen sequence, I would have just died right there in 1993. That's it. Sign me out. I'm good. I love that stuff. And we tried to put it in other stuff with Brian's tone and flavors and stuff. So it's an honest conversation here and there. And the other thing is, we're not precious about just destroying the previous day's work, even if it's like 10 hours. And then I spend an hour and a half typing up notes. We wake up in the morning, we're like, that was pretty dumb. Yeah, it was pretty stupid. What's the next better idea? We do that all the time.
Well, that's great. It sounds like it's a really good partnership. And I've seen you guys in the room together also, so I know that you work very well together. But I think it's great to hear that you're not afraid to sort of write shit if you have to, or completely trash something just to sort of, sometimes you need to write something down in order to get to something else.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And as opposed to just thinking about things, sometimes it's better to just put it down on the page. At least that's been my experience. Mr. Ramesh, anybody else? Maybe one or two more questions?
One other question. Someone asked, did you ever consider when you were coming up with the story for Unseen to make Sam help? What's his name? Is it Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
That he was the victim and not Emily.
Like a twist?
That he was being stalked by Emily.
I see. Maybe to try to switch it up. I see.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We didn't consider that, but that's an interesting spin on it.
Do you think it's a better idea? Do you wish you had done it now that you hear it? Like,
I don't know. This one's sold. I got paid and the movie's made.
So. Yeah. I think that's pretty good validation.
And do you guys write every day?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Every day.
But what is writing though? We talk every day. We'll take a weekend day or half a weekend off to whatever, watch a movie or not see each other, whatever. But we always talk, and I do a lot of, I call it like second, like in the shower or on a run, I'll get ideas. So I need to do that too, where it's not actual, it's like passive writing, I call it. But that's where a lot of ideas come from. You're like, oh, that happened because you were on a run, or taking a walk or whatever. And that's not with Brian, but it sort of counts, I think,
And he does it that way. And before I go to bed, I'll get something in my head that I'm mulling over. And then we've got a really cool project right now that I hope the deal closes soon. And I was kind of thinking about it before I went to bed, and then I woke up at 5. Same with the Vatican. I woke up at 5, and it was like fully formed. I had it, and then I wrote it immediately to Sal. So I think when you some people say you got to have an off switch. I know that, but if you think about it while you're lying there before you go to bed, it does something in your mind, and then sometimes you get lucky and it comes out close to fully formed. So that's definitely something that's how I do idea generation, but we either break story or write specs every single day, except sometimes on the weekends.
Wow. Well, guys, it clearly has panned out. Your hard work has paid off. Everybody can see Unseen. It's don't be cheap. It's $5.99. You can find it anywhere. It's a lot cheaper than going to the movie theaters. Or you can wait until
$20. Buy it for $20.
Or you can buy it. I think it's for $19. Yeah, Sal,
19,
I don't love you that much. But also it's coming to MGM Plus in May. That used to be Epix, right? That's where they have their
correct.
Do you have to pay for Epix, or is that part of cable? I cut my cord, so I don't know anything about cable anymore.
You need to buy the channel on cable, and I believe it'll be a streamer. And what we were told was that the Epix folks, if this is wrong, don't sue me. The Epix folks were such fans of this months ago that they kind of waited to put it on Epix on MGM Plus because they liked it so much.
I see. Okay, yeah, because that's their new platform, right? That's their new,
yeah.
All right, but you can go to Amazon and buy it now, or I'm sure many other streaming platforms. So, guys, thank you so much for dropping by today. Maybe we'll have you back after your next project, right?
That would be great. Yes. Thank you for having us. I hope we gave something of value to your listeners.
I think so. Listen, I always think it's really interesting to talk about sort of the evolution of stuff. And I appreciate you sharing that process with us. Thank you to our members for tuning in. Mr. Ramesh, always pleasure. All right, so we're out, and we'll see you soon. Remember, 2 weeks for our script consultant webinar, or whatever the hell it's called. All right, goodbye.
Y'all have a good day. Bye.
So bad. I should not be doing this. I should not.